This is Rich Straffolino with the Department of No. Bill Harmer, CISO over at Superbase. Got to ask, what has been your priority this past week?
Oh God, priorities. AI. How do you roll it out? How do you secure it? How do you not end up in token debt?
Fantastic. I imagine quite a number of our listeners also perhaps have that same priority this week. David B. Cross, CISO over at Atlassian. I got to ask, what has been your priority this week? Also AI related?
Of course it is. I'm just wondering when is the next AI breakout going to occur? And did I miss it on Twitter, right?
We're rapidly approaching AI breakouts becoming like ransomware attacks or data leaks, where we'll just be like, well, yeah, of course there was like 6 this week, and we don't need to worry about them anymore. It'll just be something that scrolls by on your RSS feed. But until that point, we will talk about them on the Department of No. Speaking of which, let's run the show. Let's get into it. Can't wait to talk about the news.
From the CISO series, it's Department of No.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Department of No. This is your virtual Friday strategy meeting, and we are so thrilled to be sponsored today by Vanta, helping make the show possible. Remember, you can get involved in each of our segments here by getting involved in our chat. We always have a lively chat going on. I see CCL in there, and he's excited to see the great David Cross on the show being there live. So if you want to say hi to David or to Bill, presumably both, don't play favorites. That's not fair. Get involved in our live chat or shoot us an email, feedback@cisoseries.com. Quick reminder that the opinions expressed on the show are in fact those of our guests and not their employers. So just keep that in mind. Contextually, you have been disclaimed. We've got about 30 minutes. Let's get into our no or no segment here. One that I saw a ton this week popping up is a federal agency hires North Korean IT workers. An unidentified U.S. federal agency unknowingly, I don't know if we needed to confirm that it was unknowingly, hired a North Korean remote IT worker, prompting an FBI investigation. I guess if it was knowingly, it'd be a much different story. This is nothing new, of course, for private industry. North Korea has repeatedly used fraudulent remote jobs to fund the regime and sometimes steal some good old proprietary data. When it reaches the federal government, though, I feel like this then becomes a sharp test of hiring and identity verification controls. I included this story mostly because on our YouTube channel, we got a ton of comments to the effect of, meanwhile, my inbox has multiple rejections from OPM. North Koreans can get hired easier, I guess, than legitimate candidates. But this isn't a news story necessarily. I'm curious, do you want to know more about this bill because of the government agency hook, or does that not effectively change the challenge that we're facing here?
No, it honestly, I think it just highlights that, government agencies are bureaucratic. They move slower. Adding in new processes, adding in new tooling, just takes longer. I think there's nothing new here. Yeah. If it was intentional, then I'd want to know more.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I want the full details. Again, we were talking about the show. That's a Darknet Diaries episode right there.
There you go.
David, I'm curious for you, is there anything you want to dig in more on this, or is to Bill's point here, is this just a case of the government playing catch up, seemingly something they're familiar with?
Well, as always, we know the commercial is always ahead of the governments, right? And things like that. And they really need to follow the commercial playbook, right? And saying that don't just do the background check, but do the continuous identity verification. And Rich, you just kind of sent me an email. You didn't check my identity before coming on this show again. So I'm not sure.
That's fair. Actually,
show me your 3 fingers in front of your face right now.
They've already messed that. Like I'm sure they've already messed that up too. So we're all just pretend. This is all pretend consent that we're all real people here, and we can all deal with that. At least for this show. I'm not hiring either of you, so it works out either way. Our next story here on No or No, of course, video call leads to kernel flaw of doom. Researchers found a Unisoc modem firmware flaw that breaks isolation between modem memory and the Android kernel, potentially enabling kernel level code execution which I think technically is known as not great. Their exploit chain gained modem code execution, disabled memory protections, and triggered the final stage through a voice over LTE video call. Tests succeeded on a Realme C33 and a Xiaomi A5 and Motorola E13 were all listed as affected as well. Catchy names all around, guys. No firmware fix has been identified, and the device list may be incomplete because this is commodity hardware. David, I'm curious for you. No fix. We don't know the extent of the vulnerability. Neither of those are very reassuring here. This seems like a non-trivial breakdown of component isolation. Is this something you want to be bringing to a security team? Is this still too academic for you? Like, where does this news story kind of fall for you?
No, it's not academic at all. But I think also the reality is what enterprise can actually understand what's the state of the chips, the firmware, and things like that. We can talk about it, but it's just not reality. But it comes down to, I think, every enterprise, you need to have your trusted hardware, right? So, Rich, what phone from China are you buying, and do you trust it, right? I don't know about you, Bill, but I'm sticking with my Google Pixel. I got a little more confidence in that hardware and the trustworthiness of that one.
So I was going to say, like, I mean, you're talking over 100 million phones with a vulnerability that can take over from a video call. Now, there is a chain to it, but it does reinforce sort of that. Did a bunch of hardware just move from the acceptable list to the banned watch list on companies? Because, 9 times out of 10, Apple, Google, okay, it's pretty easy. But when you start to get into countries like Thailand, there are very few phones that are available that aren't made in China. And you have to start looking at what is the least risk, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm just even thinking from, even if you're on top of your MDM, does that, how far deep is that going down? You're looking at OS versions, you're looking at app, versions. You're not looking at hardware, firmware versions. That's I don't even know if there's a way to report that necessarily in any of those solutions. So, good luck with that. And the continued fragmented state of any smartphone platform, but Android in particular is particularly in a good way, right? There's a vast hardware ecosystem, which makes it even harder to track. So, okay, I'm glad I'm not the other one kind of freaked out by that one here. Next up here, vacation photos go from annoying to malicious. Researchers at McAfee Labs warn of a new potential phishing technique that could analyze photos posted to Facebook or Instagram to create fake, customized, unusual activity warnings from a bank or a credit card company. The researchers stated that an image with no mention of where it was taken, no metadata attached, can be identified by AI agents with up to 90% accuracy. They do things by focusing on the background, architecture, signage, even the angle of the sun can be enough to give some information on location there. Bill, we've known threat actors can weaponize any personal information we put out there. This hasn't stopped anyone from doing so based on the success of Meta, I guess. But anything here that you want to learn more about, or do we just need to just stop posting? That's the takeaway here.
Yeah, I think it really is like for us in the industry, we know this. Like, I don't think anybody in the industry, I hope people in the industry don't have open accounts, don't share stuff when they go on vacation, just because your home could be affected, let alone your business. But I think there's a lot of people that aren't in our industry, right? And we still expect non-industry people to react like industry people. So I think it's good to reinforce to your families, your friends, the ones that aren't in the security world, don't understand that somebody might be doing this kind of thing, what is possible. And for the love of God, tell them to stop replying to those Facebook quizzes on which celebrity or animal you most resemble, because they are just data scrapers.
This is just the tip of the iceberg to help break all the bad social media habits. Also, to stop posting. Facebook doesn't have permission to use my personal data posts. Those are the gift that keeps on giving. David, yep. I see a nod in your head there. Where's your mind at with this story? Is there anything in particular new here that we would need to worry about, or is this, as Bill said, kind of something we already kind of knew?
I'm just happy because I told you about my travel site because I was seeing the volcanoes in Hawaii last week, and both of you clicked on it already. So I got all your data. Oh, sorry, hang on.
No,
I didn't.
But at the same time, right, is that it's really getting everybody to really think about, in both the consumers, our grandmas and things like that, we got to move away from the simple passwords. We got to move to passkeys, right? The passkeys, they're still kind of hard to do, everybody, but I think that's where you have to get there for both employees of MFA and consumers, because I think that's a big part of the overall story looking forward.
Yeah, and what this, the only new part of this to me, because I just already assumed, like, if you posted, like, yeah, hey, I'm out of town, like, just like rob my house, is just posted on like a Facebook group somewhere. But the idea of not only can this be done instantaneously, with but at scale, right? Like instantaneously, right? So it's not even like someone's targeting you. There's just a photo dump, and when they see a misalignment between location of photo and location of profile, which is usually public on some level, easy to find, or they can just scrape whatever data, like how easy it would be to from scratch build that up. Like that would be the demonstration. That would be like I started with nothing, and with a half hour in Claude, I could whip up this kind of thing to do that. That's what feels different, even though, Bill, I kind of agree with you. Like I just assumed all of this was like Facebook was already selling ads based on this already. So, ThreatX is playing catch up there. They're like the government that way. All right. And our last story in No here is pernicious persistence of memory. Researchers at Anthropic and Switzerland's EPFL published research showing that self-propagating payloads can spread between AI agents through the persistent memory files that agent frameworks like OpenClaw and others use to carry state across sessions. In one recorded test, Claude Haiku 4.5 agents running OpenClaw's default configuration deleted an entire home directory, including credentials and SSH keys, after a payload reframed the shared workspace as needing cleanup. From some encouraging notes here, a one-paragraph warning added to the system prompt cut propagation to near zero. But David, LLMs and agents are still in the world where it feels like we're still trying to grasp the fundamentals of their threat surface in some ways, and memory seems like a big one here. Like we know that there is a lot that can be poisoned there. It's just we're still figuring out a lot of the fundamentals there. It feels like obviously this particular approach seems easy to patch. But is this the kind of stuff that you're thinking about, how these like threat surfaces can be abused in this way? Or is it, hey, we got the fix, this one's not a big deal here?
The way I think about it is its reality is that we're going to have the model armors, we're going to have the prompt proxies and different things like that, but that's not the solution. I think the reality is we need a lot of these agents because they're going to appear, they're going to proliferate and things like that. We need to be operating in sandboxes. They need to be restricted, right? And I think this is the reality, right? It's kind of like, and go back the days of UAC and Windows is like, you're going to contain and what this application can do. And I think that's the way the agents in the future here is they're going to have to run in some sandboxes, some virtualized sandbox, application sandbox. And I think that's the reality. The prompt controls are not adequate.
Bill, are you building up your sandbox to dump some agents in at this point?
Yes, but like, can we at least not use the sandbox that the foundation models have been using lately that keeps getting broken out of? No, I think the reality is you're very correct. These are going to go in sandboxes, but we're also looking at the return of a hyper-converged endpoint from a security perspective. We have done a lot of work over the years, myself included, when I was at Zscaler, about hitting it on the wire, right? Getting it in flight. Problem is, when it's in flight, it's too late now. So security's got to come back to the endpoint in memory, DLP in memory, agent to agent communications, a memory proxy that allows you to create controls to pass through things. I think you're going to see a complete revamp of what happens on the endpoint.
I agree with Bill. I think like that, certainly the endpoint protection is going to include the behavioral detections and other type of things that we're seeing with the agents. It's part of the future. It's the reality.
I need like a WPA poster that just says "in flight is too late." Like I need like a mid-century propaganda poster just to start spreading around here. Spread the good word. Excellent points all around. Before we dive in to some of our deeper dive, we'll get into some of those AI agent escapes and some of the follow-up with that as well. Got to spend a few moments and thank our sponsor for today, and that is, of course, Vanta. Your GRC team is dealing with more and more frameworks, vendors, and risk. The board wants it all in one place, but your compliance data lives all over. Vanta's Agentic Trust platform connects compliance, risk, and trust at enterprise scale and delivers a 526% ROI over 3 years. 16,000 companies trust Vanta, including Snowflake, Atlassian, and Ramp. Visit vanta.com/CISO to learn more. All right, let's dive into our next story here. This one was particularly interesting to me this week. The malware is coming from inside the Microsoft. Researchers at Ontinu Cyber Defense Center detailed a new malware framework called TwinLoot. And what makes this stand out is it basically takes living off the land to its extreme here. Its entire command and control infrastructure running on Microsoft services. So we got SharePoint Online and Microsoft Graph APIs for C2 communication, Microsoft Teams Turn Relay infrastructure used for access, and the Edge browser itself to disguise Graph API communications. The researchers warn that the only way to really distinguish twin loop traffic is to look for deviations from baselines on traffic to trusted services. Bill, obviously living off the land, nothing new here, tried and true tactic. Hey, let's use Dropbox to host all of our stuff here. But this seems like it was almost created on a dare to use as much Microsoft stuff as possible here. Anything here stand out to you? And do attacks like these have to change how we treat so-called trusted services? I know zero trust has been on everybody's lips for years at this point. Nothing new there.
Yeah, so there are no trusted services. Just don't trust them. That is what zero trust. That's the philosophy. Trust is simply repetition over time. And not to slag on Microsoft, but I don't know, Patch Tuesday. Vulnerability in Microsoft is like a Tuesday. But they are running something at a massive scale, and running things at massive scale requires a lot of coordination. And you can hide these things really, really well inside some of these in some of these platforms. So I think as you build out, as you develop on more of the platforms, use them, right? Move them into a category of known, not necessarily trusted, but known. And then once inside known, you can adjust that trust level based on how much you've used them and how much repetition over time you've had without issue. Unfortunately for Microsoft, I think you're going to probably see them sit in the known but vulnerable or the known but risky category. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how we run business, right? You go find your solutions. I don't think they'll ever end up in a very quiet corner where nothing bad is happening. There's just too many moving components on that side.
Yeah, I'm always talking about consciously accepting risk, right? And if we know, to that point, Microsoft is a known, it carries some risk. Obviously, a lot of businesses are still going to choose to accept that based on, I don't know, the entire history of business, digital business here. David, I'm curious for you, what did this, how did this story strike you? Anything unusual here? Any kind of lessons to tease out kind of along those lines?
Well, I think that Bill really kind of talked about here a little bit. It's like it's zero trust, right? It means you're zero trust everybody. All your SaaS providers, you cannot trust them. You cannot trust these domains, right? And I think that's the reality. And so just kind of blacklisting and things like that. Nope. And it really comes back to, hey, if you're using SaaS services, you need to have SSPM, everybody, right? And also just like with the AI, I'm going to bring it up again. It's all about, the identity anomalies, right? That is our pivot. That's kind of our hub, right? And different identity behaviors and things. And that's how we're going to detect it. I think that's the reality. And so we can't just say, oh, I'm using name your favorite SaaS service. It's a trusted domain. No, I think that world's changed. And I think the malicious agents are going to take it to the next level. And I think we have to watch for that even more in the context of the identities and their actions.
This is a whole nother issue, but I'm just so curious because we're talking about that. We've been talking a lot internally at the CISO series just about the challenges of SMB security. One, as an SMB ourselves, but two, just in this category. And this kind of living off the land stuff feels like, again, one of those situations where it feels like so easy. Like if I was a threat actor, I'd be going after, an SME, SMB, something like that, where they're even if they want to, they're not going to be establishing those baselines as often. They're, it's a 1 or 2 person IT shop that a guy does, someone does on their team does security, on the side, essentially. And that to me feels like this story, again, if I needed more empathy for SMBs in cybersecurity, this story to me kind of pushed me over the top there.
Rich, the one thing that I would say, let's pull back. Let's start running all our on-premise. Let's have Exchange Server and run Exchange Server ourselves and patch that and manage that. No, everybody, that's not the future. We need to go to the cloud but we're going to adapt to that, not try to bring it all in home, and you can manage it better and secure it better.
Yeah, when you look at the SMBs and even earlier stage, the startups, if you're China, North Korea, if you're a nation state that's looking to get a foothold in the future, you go after the small ones and look for them to blow up and become big, and then you're already buried in there somewhere. I think again, there's lots of we market lots of solutions in the security world to the enterprise. I think AI is helping to be able to market to the SMBs because it's becoming a little bit more automated and it's becoming a little bit more. I think people are starting to realize you don't need all of the bells and whistles of a full-blown system. You need the core basics, and if the core basics are there, you can start to work from that as a small medium business.
Yeah, that cybersecurity poverty line feels very real, and I appreciate that we've seen more efforts to articulate exactly like what constitutes that. I think that is a productive conversation, and we're going to be getting into some of the AI implications for security in our next discussion here. OpenAI and irregular AI security updates. So OpenAI has issued an urgent call to rapidly modernize cybersecurity defenses. The primary insight here is that while AI accelerates threat actor capabilities, see the cybersecurity headlines as of the last couple months, it simultaneously opens a critical defender's window to fundamentally shift security economics by using AI to proactively find, prioritize, and fix deep-seated vulnerabilities. So this means AI agents to continually do things like audit code, triage security alerts at machine speed, integrate automated patching directly, et cetera, et cetera. This comes in also, though, as OpenAI is rewriting its preparedness framework after tests suggest its upcoming Astra model may have reached a critical cybersecurity threshold, while another unreleased model breached Hugging Face's systems. And speaking of that, the testing provider Irregular, that was the testing platform that OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta agents all escaped from, issued its post-mortem on at least part of a recent rash of AI escape incidents, chalking at least some of them up to good old human oversight. They found a test scenario set up with a fictional entity, and then they found out that after they had set it up, but before they had launched the thing, that the domain was actually registered then to a real company. Whoops. Turns out lag comes for us all. Breaking news, though, AI company or company selling AI thinks you maybe should proactively use more AI. Jaded observations aside, I'm curious from your perspective, David. Let's start with you here. Is OpenAI kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth here? I mean, I've heard Phil Venables, a lot of people in cybersecurity, kind of predicting short-term acute pain for cybersecurity with AI, but then seeing a long-term transformation into meaningfully proactive security. The things OpenAI is talking about here, but that's coming as we're struggling to contain what our own agents are doing, let alone those of the bad guys. What is your read on all this?
Well, I think I agree to a degree. I think eventually we're going to reach a plateau and we can get to a normality. But the reality is, I think it's like the frontier models, right? They're going so much faster. They're changing so quickly. So we can build our guardrails and other types of things in place. But like, oh, the next frontier model just came out, right? So did another one come out this week and are we aware of it? So I think that we're in still this horse race, but eventually it will slow down, right? It will kind of plateau and things like that. And so, hey, as the defenders, we can say, hey, we can be normalized so we can be ready for this. But I think also the element is just like with the Hugging Face incident and other type of things, right? Everyone needs guardian agents in place, everybody, right? And so for whether it's for the coding agents, you're using things like Gnostic or other things, or you want the generic agents and they break out as, Manifold and others. There's some other different ones out there. We've got to have these because otherwise these agents, they're going to self-sabotage, they're going to break out. And that's going to be the normality for quite some time until, I think, as Bill and I kind of hinted at here, our endpoint agents can provide all those capabilities, just like DLP, monitoring the agent's behaviors. But we're probably a couple years away from that. So we need something in the short term.
Bill, I'm curious, where is your mind at with these kind of related, triangulated stories here?
You can't help thinking that this is the military industrial complex selling the problem and the solution together, right? But the truth is, this is something that's coming, and we need to deal with it. Very much agree. We're going to go through short-term pain here. I think as you get further into this, we'll produce theoretically, and I'm going to preface all this with theoretically, so I don't sound like a complete Kool-Aid drinker. But theoretically, our code will be better. It will be less vulnerable, have less vulnerabilities in it. We'll see the advent of world models that will allow you to encapsulate not only your code, your environment that it runs in, but also your processes, your policies, all of the things that affect the security and vulnerability. So they will be harder to find. They will come faster. It will be, I think, a lot more attacks on humans because that's always the easiest place. Right now, we're going back to this feels sort of like late 90s, early 2000s script kiddies running against infrastructure, right? You took unskilled people with an ability to find a script. Now you don't even need that. Like you just talk to a prompt to get it. But we got through that. We came out the other side. And I think for a long time, you saw that there were I won't say very few, I would say less attacks on direct infrastructure and more on the people. We'll do the same thing. We'll have more attacks on the people. That I think will, with the advent of something like a personal AI that sits beside you and helps you and guides you, will start to reduce as well. And then you'll see the attacks on the AIs, right? So it'll be AI on AI violence in the future. And then I'm not sure, maybe I'm retired by that point, I'm hoping.
we can hope. I love the solution to the problem is hopefully I'll be retired. It does make me wonder, to your point, at first I was thinking like, right, the exhaustibility of software vulnerabilities. And I think that's I don't think the right way to think about it, but I do think in terms of like hardening code, making code more mature, it almost, I would imagine it would create up eventually over time an economic incentive where the tokens needed to be pumped in to find the next software vulnerability increasingly don't make sense as companies keep investing in improving the quality of their code. Again, that seems like a longer term thing. It's not happening tomorrow, next month, or et cetera. But that does, anytime I see incentives potentially starting to align like that, of course, that just means social engineering just goes absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But hopefully I will be retired by that point. I'm keeping that in my back pocket as my ultimate resolution to cybersecurity woes.
Kind of building upon it, I think what both of you said is like, I think Heather Atkins at Google, right? She says, hey, it's going to take 2 years. We're going to get through the wave of all the existing debt, right? Of all the platforms, all the operating things and things like that, into a place where, hey, we've got through all that debt. And now it's the continuous code, the new code. But then we're going to have all these controls. We're going to have all these agents. We're going to have all these checks in place. So we probably will get to a plateau, but it may take us 2 years. We're just in that first wave. And we'll see it in every month. Hey, when it's 600 and 600 patches in Patch Tuesday, and then we get down to much smaller things, then think, okay, we're on that plateau.
Let's get to the plateau is our takeaway maybe for today. Our last story real quick here, AI-driven attacks on Siemens PLCs. I think this is of a kind with our last discussion here, but I want to dig into this a little bit. Operators of industrial control systems are being warned about threat actors using AI to target Siemens S7 series PLCs. Specifically, the attackers are using AI to generate exploitation scripts on these PLCs for initial access, post-exploitation activities. Their targets are currently in critical sectors, including manufacturing, energy, water, wastewater, and food, and as agriculture as well. The risks, as pointed out by CISA and the FBI, range from disruption of critical industrial processes, downtime, equipment damage, and even compromise of sensitive data. That one, I feel like the downtime is, they're all important, is all I'm saying. The data, whatever. Bill, this is the kind of short-term pain I think that we're kind of discussing in the last segment here. Again, PLCs often out of sight, out of mind. This does feel like a key part of critical infrastructure. I mean, it is. It doesn't seem like it. It certainly is. Is it ready for what's already out there? What AI-driven attacks are already capable of? And is this the kind of thing where that we need to jump that plateau curve and maybe try and shorten that short-term pain because of the stakes involved?
I think we're back again. This is just the swing of the cycle hitting the same thing. The whole OT side was hit years ago when we took it off from offline to online so we could have remote access. And we said things like, well, we'll put it behind a VPN so that way the guy that gets the call in the middle of the night, he doesn't get to bill us for the 4-hour drive out to the site. So we did it for cost-effective reasons. But we brought everything online and made them an open target. I think you're going to go see the same cycle is going to happen again. They're going to go, oh, OT is a big problem. Yeah, it's always been a big problem. You never fixed it. I think this time you might have something that comes closer to a fix or to a better solution, because the autonomy of agents being able to go find, attack, modify the attack, re-attack, spawn more agents to do more attacks will mean that it's not somebody who's sitting with a script trying to pull lists, attack, do the regular stuff. So I think we're just going through the cycle again. It's going to highlight that OT is an important thing. Maybe these 2 letters will take over from the AI letters for 10 or 20 minutes.
We can afford to give them some bandwidth. Yeah,
exactly.
What David, is this time is a flat circle where we're seeing the cycle again here for you, or is there anything else that comes to mind when we're seeing attacks on these PLCs?
Rich, I'm thinking about the 20-year circle. When I'm thinking about 20 years ago, we never learned from Stuxnet. Name your favorite 3-letter agency, right? That says, hey, this is what we can do with these devices. And so that happened 20 years ago. Have we learned from that, right? And so I think, Bill, you're saying, this is the VPN. No, we need the full zero trust. We need the whole MDM, all these type of things, because nothing's really changed. And we've actually made it easier. And with the agents coming on board, they're going to go after it with a vengeance. And I think there's a big change that's needed.
Well, if I could make a prediction here, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to see it come off the internet, right? We're going to see it go into some private network because they're going to say, hey, we don't need it. In fact, we don't need people to go out to those sites anymore. We're going to have agents do it. So the agents are going to take over the analysis, the initial triage, which will sound like a great idea. And it will look even cheaper than having the $700 an hour technical consultant look at something, whatever it is. But then you're going to have to figure out, did they put the right security around the agents that are now doing this? And that is where they will gaff it somewhere, and some agent will go out and the company's own agent will attack its own systems. Then they'll fix it.
Now, Bill, isn't that a movie? Is that from one of the movies with the mask behind you, or is that a different movie I'm thinking of?
Distinctly possible. People have always asked me.
That was definitely a later Friday the 13th sequel. That was Camp Crystal Lake becomes a data center, and that I'm pretty sure that's one of the later ones. Bill, I'm gonna put that in a bottle, and then I'm just gonna save that against predictions because. By the way, CCL in our chat, David mentioned Stuxnet literally the exact same time you were talking about it. So the meeting of the minds, literally meeting in the live stream and also meeting in the chat as well. Truly, truly excellent. I'm thinking about just offline, closed network agents on critical infrastructure. I'm waiting for that press release, Bill. It's coming. We all know it's coming. This is glorious. We're getting ahead of the curve here.
Somebody tag me when this one hits.
Yeah. All right. We need to get out of here. But before we do, I want to grab some quick advice from both of you. A lot of meaty topics on here. We had AI. We had zero trust. We're talking government stuff here. Bill, let me start with you. What piece of advice would you leave our audience with based on what we've talked about today?
Get into the AI side of things as fast as possible for your organization. Start to build an AI culture, but more importantly, build a constitution and build a centralized AI agent OS, if you will, that learns recursively based on what you're doing, so that you will be able to consistently deliver AI agent solutions through your organization. If you let everybody run their own, these things will be all over the place.
I like it. Oh, you're saying learn and have a plan.
Yeah.
That seems who knew that could work in business?
Pay your tokens up front on this, but plan to be multi-model. Route your models when you get to that point, but don't try to route models while you're trying to figure out how this works. You'll be changing too many things.
Our last two Super Cyber Fridays, I just need to plug these real quick, I've kind of dealt with the idea of AI in the loop, and I think this is somewhat analogous. This is an idea I first saw from Howard Holton, which I was really enjoying. And we were talking about AI tools, but kind of that routing layer and that multi-model layer, tooling around that came up in our latest Super Cyber Friday just earlier today. So check that out at CISOseries.com. You can find the replay there as well. David Cross, I haven't forgotten about you. What piece of advice would you leave with our audience today based on what we've talked about?
I'm continuing building on AI, but I'm going to take the defender mindset and things like that, saying, hey, everybody, you need guardian agents, right? So that you have an inventory that you can monitor, that you can do alert on, that you can actually block, and things like that. We all need guardian agents. Until the endpoint protection is matured and there for on every machine like it is today, you need a guardian agent, everyone.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Bill Harmer, CISO at Supabase, and David B. Cross, the CISO at Atlassian. We will have links to both of your LinkedIn profiles in our show notes today, so make sure you check those out. And then, David, you have another website you'd like to send people. You alluded to it earlier. Hopefully it's not a phishing scam or a data harvesting scam, but where can people find all of your world travels and possibly send you scam emails from?
Absolutely. DavidCrossTravels.com. I saw the Hawaii's volcano last week and things like that. And if you can click on it, I can collect your data. Thank you.
Thanks also to our sponsor for today, Vanta, for supporting the show. Remember, you can send us feedback anytime, feedback@CISOseries.com. We love seeing your emails, reading what you're thinking about, and we will often respond and say thank you, at the very least, and other correspondence may follow. Remember to join us next Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern for another edition of the Department of No. We would love to have you join us in the live chat. Get involved. You can meet the people that you hear on this show and talk to them in our chat. It's a lot of fun. Thanks to you for joining us so much for our Friday stand-up. Hope you have a great week. Stay secure out there. For myself, for the big boss man, David Spark, for the entire CISO series team, and indeed for Bill Harmer and David B. Cross, here's wishing you and yours to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOseries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.